بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. This is lesson 14 in our reading of ال al-Khushu', and in this lesson we're going to be looking at another explanation that Imam al-Khadimi presents for the Fatiha. And since we've taken the explanation of the Fatiha in previous lessons, we won't go into too much detail in this lesson. Rather, we'll suffice with the text of Imam al-Khadimi and what it states. And so he says, وَالْمَفْهُومُ مِنْ كَلَامِ بَعْضٍ أَنَّ قَوْلَهُ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ لِبَيَانِ أَنَّهُ حَقِيقٌ بِالْحَمْدِ. So what is understood from the statement of some of the scholars is that when one states Alhamdulillah, then this is in order to express the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is entitled and deserving of all praise. وقوله رب العالمين لبيان نعمة الإيجاد في الدنيا فإن الإخراج من العدم إلى الوجود أعظم تربيته تعالى. And so when one says رب العالمين, then this is in order to express the blessing of coming into existence in this worldly realm, because being taken out of a state of non-existence and being placed in a state of existence is from the greatest acts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it relates to the cultivation and nurturing of the human being. And again, we took what Rabb means, we took its relationship to the word tarbiyah. We explained how tarbiyah, when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards creation, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directing the will of creation to something greater. And of course, the first step in that is the existence of creation itself. Right? So the first act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's tarbiyah when it comes to creation is taking them from a state of non-existence into a state of existence. وقوله الرحمن الرحيم لبيان البقاء بجلائل النعم ودقائقها. And so when one says الرحمن الرحيم, then this is in order to express and explain the continuation of these very important and subtle attributes that human beings are given. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only brings us into creation, but He sustains our life. He sustains our being at every moment. So this is the Jala'il and Ni'am. And then there are other more simpler blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us on a day-to-day basis. He gives us rizq, He gives us health, He gives us well-being, He gives us companionship, and so on and so forth. And so Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relating to the maintenance of all these blessings that we enjoy in life, from great, important, significant blessings to even blessings that are of a minor nature. And in reality, there is no blessing, of course, that is small, because the giver of blessing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وقوله إياك نعبد إشارة إلى البقاء في دار البقاء فإن منافع ذلك تعود إلى الآخرة والوصول إلى الجنة وسعة رحمة. And so when we say إياك نعبد, you alone we worship, then this indicates towards this being in a state of baqa, or this perpetual state of existence in the realm that will exist forever. And so Dar al-Baqa over here refers to paradise. And so when we say إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, what we are indicating is trying to attain this eternal state in the realm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has deemed to be eternal and never ending, which is the next life. And why is this a indicator towards this? Why is ibadah an indicator towards this? Because the benefit of ibadah, what we earn in return for our ibadah, returns back to the next life, right? It returns back to this idea of reaching paradise. It returns back to this idea of being engulfed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. This is what our ibadah allows us to attain. And so when we say this particular phrase, we look at the long term of what is it that our ibadah is taking us towards. And what it is taking us towards is al-baqa fi dar al-baqa. Then he continues, فَقَالَ بَعْضٌ, and some scholars said, إذا ذكر الحقيق بالحمد عن قلب حاضر يجد من نفسه محركا للإقبال عليه. That when one mentions the one who is deserving and entitled to all praise, namely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with a heart that is present, then what he finds in himself is this push or this impetus, this stirring that allows one or that pushes one towards drawing nearer and approaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وكلما أجرى عليه صفة من تلك الصفات العظام قوي ذلك المحرك إلى أن يؤول الأمر إلى خاتمتها المفيدة. And so each time when we are reciting the Fatiha, as we go through it, from the Hamd, then we go to the Sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's Rabb al-Alameen, He's Ar-Rahman, He's Ar-Rahim. Each time we come across these Sifat and we reflect on them and we think about what they mean, with each mention of the Sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this stirring within us, this push within us becomes strengthened, right? We increasingly get this desire to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to present ourselves in front of Him directly, until we reach a point where we reach the end of the first half of the Fatiha. أنه مالك الأمر كله في يوم الجزاء. Namely, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the owner of the affair, of all of the entire affair, when it comes to the next life, when all of us are going to be recompensed for what we have done in this world. فحينئذ يوجب الإقبال عليه والخطاب بتخصيصه بغاية الخضوع والاستعانة في المهمات. And so when this happens, then it necessitates really approaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and drawing even more nearer to Him and presenting ourselves to Him and addressing Him specifically with the most utmost form of submission and humility and humbleness, and seeking aid from Him regarding our affairs. And so there's this slight progression that happens from Alhamdulillah to Iyyaka na'budu, because again, as we mentioned, you see this shift, you see this iltifat, this change in an address that is initially a third person address to one that becomes a direct address. And so the ulama say that beginning with Alhamdulillah, going through the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reminding your soul of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. You're bringing to mind, who is it that I'm standing in front of? And as you go through these sifat, your soul stirs itself and wants to appear before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wants to present itself before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until it reaches a point where it does exactly this. And then it starts addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly in this more humble fashion, and in expressing its need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says, وَالْبَيْضَاوِي بَنَى أَوَّلَ الْكَلَامِ عَلَى مَا هُوَ حَالُ الْعَارِفِ. And so Imam al-Baydawi, who's the famous scholar with a famous tafsir as well, he understood the way he explained the Fatiha was, he explained the initial portion of the Fatiha as being the hal of the arif, or the state of someone who knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly and experientially, a Gnostic. من الذكر وتأمل في أسمائه والنظر في آلائه والاستدلال بصنعه على إذم شأنه وباهر سلطانه. That he basically remembers Allah and reflects on His names and His favors, and derives from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creative powers and what he has manifested in this plane he derives from all this the utter greatness and magnitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's and the sovereignty that he exerts over the created realm. ثم قف بما هو منتهى أمره وهو أن يخوض في لجة الوصول ويصير من أهل المشاهدات فيراه عيانا ويناجيه شفاهة. And so what happens was when he goes through the Fatiha and he reflects on the reality of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and he reflects on the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he reflects on the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, then what ends up happening is that he is made to go after what this naturally entails when you recognize such a being, and that is or the state that arises upon engaging in this type of realization, recognition, and remembrance, and deriving what it means through reflection on the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is that one sort of engulfs himself in the depth of reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he becomes from the people of mushahada. And if you remember, when we took the hadith of ihsan, what did the Prophet ﷺ say? أَن تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. Right? That you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you see him. And this is what this is a reference to. That the people of mushahada, فَيَرَاهُ, right? They see him as if they are seeing him with their eyes. And they speak directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their lips. It's no longer simply Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. It's Iyyaka na'budu wa Iyyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship, you alone we seek aid from. Ihdina, guide us to the straight path. You are now addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, in a way as if you are witnessing him with your own eyes. ثم تجدد تكبيره تعالى تعظيما للانتقال بركن آخر فنلاحظ في هذا التكبير مثل ما في تحريم. And then one, after finishing the Fatiha, says the takbir again in order to express reverence for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while and moving on to the next rukn of salah, which is the act of ruku'. And in this moment, again, the meaning that one brings to mind when it comes to the takbir is the meaning that one brings to mind when one engages in the opening takbir, right? Which is the idea of you're expressing magnitude and reverence for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're in a state, you're in a moment where it is just you and your Lord, and everything around you has been made haram upon you. The dunya has been made haram upon you, and right now it is a moment between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that is how the ulama understood the Fatiha. And you can see that they thought about it very carefully. They thought about how can you cultivate a state with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the prayer while reciting this extremely powerful surah of the Quran that is termed the opening for a reason, because it allows the hearts to be opened. It allows our souls to be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It allows us to attain presence of heart in prayer. It encapsulates really the essence of the message of our deen, in terms of the reality of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, what our relationship is to him, what we owe him in terms of worship, who we turn to in order to be guided and saved, and so on and so forth, which we have detailed in previous lessons. And so this was a short lesson, and in the remaining lessons, Imam al-Khadimi will do something similar when it comes to ruku' and sujood and the other actions of prayer. And so inshallah we will, with that, conclude this lesson. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.